All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that was helpful. Maybe one more short break before we're finished for the day. That should do it. Have a seat. Mr. Stroller.
Thank you, Your Honor. If it may please the court.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing today, Detective Musser?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Very well. Do you have a copy of your report in front of you?
Yes, I do.
If at any time you need to refresh your recollection, go ahead, but don't read from it if that's okay. Now, they talked a little bit about your career. You were a burglary detective, correct?
Correct.
And you were only a burglary detective for about 6 months.
Correct.
And then you went to what you said, the aggravated battery detective?
Correct.
Okay, and that's domestic violence, things like that?
No, sir. Oh, not domestic violence, just a non-life-threatening gun crimes.
Okay, and in that respect, you were there for about 8 months?
Correct.
All right. Now, in JSO, when you move from a patrolman to a detective, it's a lateral move, correct?
Correct.
It's not a promotion.
No.
You don't have to take a test.
Nope.
It's not like a sergeant's exam or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
You basically get interviewed,
Correct.
and that's after it's given out to JSO, I guess like a job application is put out there. They advertise the position.
Yes, they'll say they're interviewing for people interested in coming to the investigations unit.
All right, and you did that for the burglary unit?
I did that for the investigations unit. It's not specifically for the burglary unit. That was just the first unit I went to.
Okay, and then from burglary to aggravated battery, you do another interview?
No, sir.
All right, do they advertise the position?
Yes.
And then how do you get that position?
That particular one, I just responded to the lieutenant, said I was interested. I was called, brought over, said, offer me the position.
And that was after it was advertised?
Yes.
Now, you were only there 8 months, correct?
Correct.
Now, at one point, a sergeant came over to you and asked you if you wanted to be in homicide, correct?
Correct.
And they never interviewed for that position, is that true?
That is correct.
They never even advertised it to anybody in JSO, correct?
Correct.
Now, matter of fact, the same sergeant that handpicked you and appointed you as a homicide detective actually left your unit just a couple months after you were appointed, correct?
Correct.
And that's when Sergeant Paul came on?
Yes.
Now, the night of this incident, Sergeant Paul was your direct supervisor, correct?
Correct.
He didn't interview you for the position, did he?
No.
He didn't appoint you for the position, did he?
No, he did not.
He just happened to be your sergeant because you were already there when he got there.
That is correct.
Now, with that being said, correct me if I'm wrong, did you tell the state you did a brief walkthrough as you got on scene?
Not on scene. Not on scene.
At the homicide, at the crime scene?
Not initially. The walkthrough was done a little bit later.
Right, with the evidence technician?
Yes.
And you said that was brief. Was that your words?
Brief, 20 minutes.
Okay. And in those 20 minutes, you basically showed him the Durango.
Correct.
You showed him the casings on the ground.
Well, it's a combination. It's both of us because he's obviously there also. He can see the same evidence as I can.
Well, then I'm asking you, what did you point out?
I don't recall if I pointed out or if he's there also with me. It's obvious that there are shell casings lying on the ground. Mm-hmm. There are obvious multiple gunshot holes in the side of the truck.
All right. And then what else do you point out, if anything at all?
I know we walked around to the driver's side of the truck. We observed clothing on the ground, what appeared to be a wallet.
Okay. And that's obvious because it's there.
Because it's there.
All right. What else did you point out?
That's all I recall at this time.
Okay. And you have your report there. You want to refresh your recollection?
I can.
Go ahead. Tell me if you put anything in your report, what you pointed out other than what we'll call the obvious.
I think we covered it.
Nothing else, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, you also testified about this tripod underneath the back seat.
Correct?
You testified to the jury that you and Detective Oliver did some kind of investigation with it. Is that what I heard you say?
We noticed it when we came back to the truck to look at the child locks, yes.
All right. And that was several days later, 4 to be exact.
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
And can you tell me where you put in your report that Detective Oliver climbed in the back seat to see if he could get that in or out?
I did not.
It's not in your report.
No, it is not.
So the first time we're hearing about it is today in front of this jury. Is that correct?
First time you've heard about it, yes.
Okay. But it's not in your report, is it?
No, it is not.
All right. And that's something that obviously was relevant to the state to ask you about.
The state decided it was relevant, yes.
And again, it's something that you never included.
I did not.
Now, aren't you trained as an officer? And how long have you been an officer?
I've been with the sheriff's office 9.5 years.
In 9.5 years, aren't you trained where your reports are supposed to be accurate,
Yes,
complete,
yes.
and especially if it's relevant to the case, included in your report?
If I believe it's relevant, yes.
Okay, but you didn't believe it was relevant of what you testified about Detective Oliver sitting on the back seat to try to get that tripod out.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Isn't it true when that tripod is there, it actually creates a space under that seat? Isn't that true?
I can't testify to that.
Okay, do you not recall seeing and looking under there like you said you looked under there?
I could see it. I did not go, obviously, put my head underneath it.
All right, so you didn't even go to see if a rifle or shotgun could fit under there, did you?
It did not appear anything else could. I mean, I saw that. That's all I saw.
All right, and you didn't go look to see if maybe a lead pipe or some kind of pipe could be in there?
No, sir.
Or even a blunt object or a stick?
I did not observe anything.
You didn't even look, though. That's correct.
I did not see anything.
Did you look to see if there was space under that seat for a weapon?
I was looking for items, not space.
Now, when you came on scene, isn't it true there was no perimeter stopping people getting in to the plaza attached to the gate gas station?
Correct.
As a matter of fact, when you got there well after the incident occurred.
Correct.
Tell the jury, what time did you arrive on scene?
I believe it was approximately 9:04.
All right. And at 9:04, and the shooting happened at 7:40, correct?
7:38, I believe. It's the documented time, roughly.
Do you have an independent recollection of when the shooting happened?
That's documented in the report as being the incident time.
All right. Have you reviewed the video prior to your testimony today?
Not today, no, sir.
Okay. When was the last time you reviewed the video of this case?
Several weeks ago.
All right. And you knew you were coming to testify today about this case, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay. And how many times have you met with the state attorneys to discuss your testimony without going into the details? How many times have you met with them?
Twice.
All right. Now, on that, and we can assume, correct me if I'm wrong, the video is the best evidence. Would you agree?
The best evidence of what?
In terms of the time.
Not necessarily. Their clock may be different from what, JSO's clock is. I can't tell you the clock sync up exactly.
But on that video, it has a time with even seconds on it. Isn't that true?
I believe it does.
Okay. And I'm not asking about JSO time. I'm talking about the time on the video.
Yes, sir.
And that's fair.
As best I know, it's reasonable. I can't tell you if it's exactly accurate.
Okay. But yet you put that video in evidence. You took a copy of it from that scene, didn't you?
Yes.
And isn't it true you didn't even watch the video that night while you were on the crime scene?
I did not watch the video that night, not at the crime scene, no.
All right. And that's because you did not have a laptop with you.
Correct, which is standard for us.
Okay. But let me ask you this. How many cars were present in terms of law enforcement when you were there?
Numerous?
Did you ever go to one of your officers and say, put this in your laptop and let me view it?
No, I did not.
Did you ever walk into the gate gas station and ask the assistant manager, pull up the surveillance, I want to watch it?
I did not.
Now, you were the lead homicide detective, isn't that true?
That's correct.
And even though your sergeant was on scene, it's still your scene.
Yes.
He's going to defer to you.
Sometimes.
All right. In terms of what you want done, it's fair to say?
Unless he disagrees with it.
All right. And then did he disagree with anything you did that night?
No, sir.
Did he tell you should do anything differently?
No, sir.
Did he tell you to go look at the surveillance video?
No, sir.
Is that something you would do as a standard procedure on a crime scene, is go watch the video of what happened?
If I had reason to believe that the actual incident was on video, then yes. But obviously we knew there were no outside video of the actual incident itself.
All right.
So we knew it was the inside of the store, which we knew we could not see any of the actual incident.
All right. And with that being said, there's different camera angles on that video, correct?
Correct.
And you would have actually been able to see about 5 or 6 different angles of witnesses, where they were, what they saw, and what they heard. Isn't that true?
I can't tell what they see from the video. I can't tell what they hear in a video.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you even know if there's audio on that video from the gate gas station?
Yes, there is audio.
Okay, and when you got there, did you order all of the witnesses into the gate gas station, or were they already there when you got there?
They were already there.
Now, if they're already inside, correct me if I'm wrong, there's audio where you could hear what the witnesses would have said.
Yes.
And you did not go in there and ask for any time frames to record what your witnesses were saying inside the gate gas station, did you?
I did not, because this was the first case. I did not realize the gate had audio at that time. I had never been to a first time I'd ever had surveillance video that would have had audio capability, so it was not something I thought of. So no.
So you didn't even think to ask. Is that what I just heard you say?
Yes, I'd never heard of it before.
And you didn't even talk to the assistant manager to ask her about the video then, because she's the one that copied it for Lieutenant Callahan. Is that correct?
No, sir, because we already had she had provided the copy.
Lieutenant Callahan.
Yes.
Right. And then when she gave it to you again, you just didn't even decide to ask any other officer to put it in their laptop. Is that true?
No, I did not attempt to watch it at the scene.
Did you have the ability to watch it at the scene?
I don't know if I would have because actually a lot of our laptops are unable to play the video that we did receive. The one copy, the first copy I had actually when we got back to our office, I was unable to play it on our laptops because a lot of our laptops have administrative restrictions on them in certain programs we can't play. So I can't say I would have been able to see it there either way.
But you would have known before you left the scene that you couldn't see it back at your office. Isn't that true?
No, not necessarily. Say all the laptops are different. If it didn't play at the scene, doesn't mean it's not going to play on a computer in the office. I don't know that. It actually.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Eventually down the road, we were able to, there were computers in our office that would play it. Mine personally would not.
And again, you would have also been able to find out if other officers' computers did work, but you didn't even try it.
Not at the scene, no, sir.
Can you tell the jury how many law enforcement vehicles were on scene?
I don't recall.
Multiple? I mean, this is a homicide. A lot responded.
Yes, there's multiple marked vehicles there.
More than 10, less than 10.
I'd be guessing less, maybe 10.
All right. And did you ever check any of those 10 to see if it would work?
No, sir.
And there was no crime scene tape up when you came in, I believe, over an hour later. Is that correct?
No, there was crime scene tape when I arrived.
Not where you came in. You came in at Old Bay Meadows, correct?
Yes, where I entered into the
Plaza.
area, there was no crime scene tape, no.
Right. The crime scene tape was at the gate gas station entrance, correct?
Correct.
And then the other side on Bay Meadows, the other entrance was blocked off as well.
Correct.
Now, you also admit that there were other cars and people in that plaza when you came through. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And did you ever interview anybody in that plaza while you were on scene?
No, sir.
Isn't it true you only interviewed the witnesses that were put inside the gate gas station?
We interviewed the witnesses I was aware of.
My question was, it was the witnesses inside the gate gas station, correct?
The witnesses I was aware of who were interviewed.
Tell the jury where they were standing, Detective Musser.
Yes, the witnesses when I interviewed them were inside the gate gas station.
All right, so the answer to my original question was a simple yes, they were in the gas station.
The witnesses I interviewed were there at the gas station.
And again, you learn later that there's audio, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever go back to the gate gas station? Did you ever go back to management? Did you ever go to corporate and say, give me a lengthier time of that audio. I want to know what these witnesses were saying while they were in there.
No, I did not.
And you put, and correct me if I'm wrong, the three gentlemen, you said we didn't interview them until we got to homicide, correct?
That is correct.
Tell the jury where they were standing when you came on scene.
They were, as far as I knew, they were detained. I never saw them at the scene.
Okay. Were you aware that they were put inside the gate gas station with all the other witnesses?
Not initially, no, sir. I never saw them. I couldn't tell you where they were.
Did you just say not initially?
No, sir. What I'm saying is I never saw them.
Right.
I know they were transported by a marked patrol car.
When?
When they were taken down to the homicide office.
When were they transported to the homicide office? And if you need to look at your report, don't read from it. Please just look up.
I believe I requested roughly 10:15 to have them transported.
Well, don't read from it. Refresh your recollection, let me know.
It was approximately 10:15.
All right. And how long were you on scene before 10:15?
A little over an hour.
So for a little over an hour, you had no idea who was in that Durango. Is that what you're saying?
No, I knew patrol officers advised us that they had 3 individuals detained who had been in the Durango.
Where did they advise you those 3 individuals were?
I don't recall specifically knowing where they were.
Is it possible that they were in the gate gas station with all the other witnesses?
It's possible.
And had you pulled the extra video and audio, you would have been able to see and hear what everybody said. Is that true?
Sustained.
Did you pull any other video other than what the state put in evidence today?
Not from the gate gas station, no.
Right. And do you even know, again, when was the last time you watched that video?
A couple weeks ago.
And tell the jury how long is that video that you took of the recording?
I don't recall the exact amount of time that it is.
Okay. And what time was Leland interviewed?
Leland was interviewed, I believe, approximately,
Don't read from your report.
I'm not reading from my report. He was interviewed at 11:30,
All right. And what time was Tevin Thompson interviewed?
11:55.
What about Tommy Storns?
Tommy was interviewed prior to my arrival at the office, so it was earlier than those two.
So, do you want to look at your...
1 second, Mr. Strode.
Yes, Your Honor, I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall when Tommy Storns was interviewed?
I would have to refer to my report for the exact time.
Please do.
Detective Oliver interviewed him at 10:48.
PM.
Correct.
Can you tell the jury when Sean Atkins was interviewed?
10:31.
All right. Can you tell the jury when you took a sworn statement and videotaped it with Miss Wolfson of that same witness, Sean Atkins?
It was 1:30 in the morning.
All right. So you had Mr. Atkins stay there from 10 something roughly all the way till 1 to take a sworn video statement. Is that correct?
A sworn video was taken of him, yes.
And by sworn, Miss Wolfson made him take an oath like today to tell the truth.
Yes,
And that was the only witness at the homicide office that was recorded. Isn't that true?
that is true.
And isn't it true your standard operating procedures are you can still video record suspects or witnesses, you just have to get approval from a couple chains above you.
I would have to have a reason why I would want to, there was hypothetically some reason I would need to do that. In my 4.5 years in homicide, I've never recorded a witness.
All right, so because you've never done it before, you weren't going to do it now. Is that correct?
There was no reason in our opinion to do it any different than we've always done it.
All right, and isn't it true that the state can override your procedure at the sheriff's office and tell you to video record it? Isn't that true?
They probably can suggest it. I would then have to go to my chain of command.
Well, right, if Miss Wolfson that night said, let's do it, you did it, true?
A sworn statement is different than a regular recorded interview.
Well, Mr. Atkins, you didn't do an interview. You did a sworn statement of Mr. Atkins. Isn't that true?
Detective Oliver and Miss Wolfson did a sworn statement, yes.
Right, and Detective Oliver is your number one partner.
Yes.
You guys work in two teams. Even though there's 4 people on your team, it's you and Detective Oliver, right?
We are primary partnered up together. There are 4. The other 2 are their own partners too.
Right. So again, the answer to my question was yes, Oliver's your main partner.
Yes.
And isn't it true that the state can override your procedures and record or take a sworn statement of a witness because you did it with Mr. Atkins that night?
If the state requests to perform a sworn statement, it is the state performing the sworn statement. That does not come into our policy.
And that's my point. If that's what Miss Wolfson wanted to do that night, you would have obliged her and given her that room to record it.
Yes.
All right, and you didn't do that.
Well, I didn't do what?
Nobody took a sworn statement of Tommy Storns that night or videoed it,
The state did not request one.
right? Tevin Thompson,
The state did not request one.
Leland Brunson.
The state did not request one.
Right. It was only Sean Atkins.
Yes, sir.
And he got interviewed at 10:30 at night, roughly?
Roughly.
Now, I know you had answered some questions about 3-something in the morning you got the warrant signed, but that's not when you made the decision to seek an arrest warrant for Michael Dunn for murder. Isn't that true?
That's true.
It was about 2 hours earlier than that, wasn't it?
It was about 2 a.m., so about an hour and a half earlier.
And at that point, it was after you interviewed Sean Atkins and put him on sworn statement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And that was after you discussed it with Miss Wolfson, who was there with you.
Correct.
Now, you indicated on your direct examination that Michael Dunn was about 3 miles away in his hotel. Isn't that true?
The hotel where he stayed is approximately 3 miles from the scene, yes.
And you can actually see it from the highway. When you go around the road, you can actually see it from the road. Isn't that true?
From the road it's off of, yes.
Right. And again, and we're only talking a couple of minutes drive down the street.
Yes.
All right. Now, again, late at night on that evening, was there a whole lot of traffic in Jacksonville?
That is a busy area of Jacksonville.
But I'm talking about when you got there, are you telling this jury there was rush hour traffic at 10, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night?
No, but it was 7:30 on the day after Thanksgiving.
Well, when did you order officers to go search the surrounding hotels?
That had actually been done prior to my arrival.
All right. And again, when was that done?
I believe the initial BOLO, which is a be on the lookout for, which gives a description of the suspect vehicle, I believe that was issued at approximately 7:43 p.m.
All right, so at 8:43, did anybody make a call from the Sheraton Hotel from the officer saying they searched that area?
I'm sorry, at 8:43?
At 8:43, did you ever learn of anybody searching the Sheraton Hotel 3.5 miles away?
No, because the suspect left the scene. The suspect could have gone anywhere.
I understand that, but you do know the officers were looking at hotels.
I know the officers were looking in areas. We had no idea if he was at a hotel or a house or anything.
So if a sergeant was on scene and ordered his officers to look for hotels, you had no idea. Is that your testimony?
My understanding was a BOLO had been issued and officers were instructed in the area to be on the lookout if they came across this vehicle.
All right, so you would have, again, you have no knowledge if they got specific instructions to go to hotels. Is that fair to say?
I don't recall if they were specifically told to go to hotels.
All right, and you never got any phone calls of the lead homicide detective that officers have gone to hotels? No one ever reported back to you, is that correct?
Not that I recall.
Now, Mr. Guy had you look at some of those phone records. Do you still have them?
No, sir.
I know he asked you about how many phone calls were made just prior to the shooting at 7:40 p.m. Do you remember him asking you those questions?
The last call made prior to the 911 call, if there was one?
Yeah, so you recall those questions?
Yes.
Are your answers accurate in your mind, what you just read?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury how many phone calls did Tommy Storns make immediately after in the next 10 minutes after the shooting?
Not off the top of my head, I'd have to look at the records.
All right. How about Tevin Thompson? How many phone calls did he make right after the shooting, let's say in the next 10 minutes?
Once again, I'd have to refer to the records.
Okay. And you never subpoenaed their text messages from their phones. Is that true?
I don't recall if no, I don't believe I subpoenaed their text messages, no.
So you don't even know if you have 17, 18, 19-year-old men texting because you never even subpoenaed those records. Is that fair to say and accurate?
I don't recall subpoenaing, we just subpoenaed their phone records.
All right. So again, you don't know who they text. Is that fair to say?
I do not know who they text.
All right. They could have texted 100 times or one time, but you never subpoenaed it.
I did not subpoena their text messages, no.
You do have the power as a homicide officer and law enforcement to subpoena text messages. Is that true?
That is true. Now, I can't say that Tevin Thompson would have been the only one that we could have done if we had, because Sprint, I know, is a company that does not keep text messages for us.
All right, but you didn't even try to subpoena them to verify in this case. Is that
I did not try to subpoena Tevin Thompson's text messages, no.
Or Tommy Storns?
As I just said, I know they're not available from Sprint, from our experience.
What about Leland Brunson?
They're not available from Sprint.
Did you ever go into the other plaza where the red SUV had left after the shooting? Did you ever go investigate the plaza?
Me personally, no.
Yes, sir.
No.
That night?
No, sir.
Did you ever have any of your evidence technicians go to the plaza to investigate the plaza where the red SUV had left that night?
No, I did not.
Any other officers go investigate that plaza that night where the red SUV left?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you call any canine officers to come down to do an article search for weapons at the Gate gas station that night?
No, I did not.
At the plaza?
I did not.
At the surrounding areas behind where the dumpsters are?
No, sir.
And are you familiar with that gate now? You've been there?
Yes, I have.
Did you go behind it?
I have been behind it.
And there are dumpsters back there, correct?
Yes.
There's multiple dumpsters because not only do you have gate, you also have the restaurant right there. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you ever have anybody search those dumpsters?
Those dumpsters were not that night, no, sir.
Right. Well, tell me when they were searched.
On, I believe, Tuesday the 27th.
All right. So you're saying those dumpsters were searched 4 days after the shooting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do me a favor. Look in your report and tell me where that is.
It's on page 19 of 31.
Well, I only have the 25-page one.
Okay. Would be on Tuesday, November 27th at 18:05 hours.
Hold on. At what time? I apologize.
18:05 hours.
Okay? And tell me where it says they looked in the dumpsters.
After speaking with the businesses, Detective Stapp walked around the gate station and the strip mall and checked the parking lot, bushes, and the dumpsters for any signs of any evidence.
Okay? And how long was he on scene?
They arrived at 18:05 hours.
And they left at 16:45, is that correct?
Yes, it appears so.
All right. And in that 40 minutes they were there, they weren't there to check the dumpsters and the bushes, isn't that true?
There were several things they were there to attempt to do.
Right. Your two fellow officers went there to talk to every single person in that plaza to see if they had video, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell the jury how many businesses your detectives went to talk to about video?
I would have to count them from the report.
Please do, just don't read from it, sir.
Approximately 13 businesses.
Okay.
14?
Well, it goes all the way up to Unit 22.
15 it looks like. Goes up to Unit 24.
Well, and then you also have Unit 14, so it goes a little higher.
Unit
You want
24.
Let's start.
1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 16, 18, 19, 22 for Detective Stapp. Detective Cayenne was Unit 3, 5, 11, 14, and 24, it appears.
Right. And in that 40 minutes, they would have to go to businesses, find the owners, and then find out if there was video surveillance, correct?
Some of the businesses, they were able to speak to people, yes.
All right. And how many businesses were saying, even if they spent 5 minutes in each business, you're already talking over 40 minutes, isn't that true?
I wasn't there, so I can't tell you.
I'm just asking you basic math. If they spent 5 minutes in each business, we're well over 40 minutes, isn't that true?
Roughly, if that's correct, but I can't testify that that's correct.
And that's okay. And in that time, you're saying that your officers did 4 days later a thorough search of the dumpsters and the bushes 4 days later.
If my partners documented that they searched those dumpsters, then my partners searched those dumpsters.
Okay. Were they searched November 23rd?
No, sir.
Were they searched November 24th?
No, sir.
Were they searched November 25th?
No, sir.
Were they searched November 26th?
No, sir.
Matter of fact, they weren't searched until you guys got together on November 27th to have a brainstorm session of what else needs to be done in this case. True?
Correct. It's normal.
All right. And matter of fact, that was the first time you guys said, let's send a helicopter up for aerial photos. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And that was just to take aerial photos. That wasn't looking for a weapon.
No, that was also check for a weapon.
All right. Have you seen those aerial photos?
Yes.
From about 300 to 1,000 feet up, are they going to see anything on top of those roofs?
They are, the evidence technicians, when we ask them, when you're flying over, see if you can observe anything on the roof that looks like a weapon. We ask them to do that.
Okay.
The evidence technician reported back they did not see any evidence of a weapon on the roof.
And this was 4 full days after you were appointed on the case and did your investigation. Isn't that true?
Correct.
All right. Now, you never preserved the scene, or your officers never preserved the scene in that plaza. Is that correct?
No, sir, that was never secured.
All right. And you did know that the SUV left the scene, and correct me if I'm wrong, you measured it. It was over 100 yards away. Isn't that true?
Approximately, yes.
Now, where did you measure? Tell the jury where you measured that you got over 300 feet away.
I measured from the parking spot where we believe the boys had been parked in the Durango, measured that to the, down the drive area that they had traveled, to the big sign that stands in front of basically the strip mall that lists all the businesses. I went to that point. That was 320 feet, but all the boys had been indicated they believed they'd stopped actually short of that distance. I went the additional distance just to make sure I was covering it as best as possible.
And are you talking about from the second spot in front of the gate or the fourth where the Durango was processed?
The third spot where they were when the incident occurred.
So are you telling this jury the Durango was parked in the third spot in the gate gas station?
That was the information. That's where the boys believed they were parked.
Okay, and that's what they told you?
Correct.
Not that Mr. Dunn was in the first spot and they were in the second spot?
No, sir.
They said they were in the third spot?
Yes, sir.
Where'd they tell you Mr. Dunn was parked?
The second spot.
What else did you guys do after November 27th when you had that brainstorm session of what else needed to be done with Michael Dunn?
And there are numerous things we did.
Let me ask you this then, and I'll narrow it down for you. You said you didn't, let me correct this also. You said you didn't even know there were 911 calls until over a week later?
No, sir. The night of the incident, when we returned to the homicide office, I did request to have the 911 calls downloaded from our communication center. That night, they only downloaded one call to us, so the only call we were able to hear that night was the initial call from the store manager.
Okay, and you didn't even hear Christopher LeBlanc and Alyssa LeBlanc's 911 call until November 30th, isn't that true?
That is true.
And that's because JSO couldn't find it?
No, sir. I said on that first night, that was all that was made available to us. That was when I listened to them.
How was it made available to you over a week later?
They were placed on a server.
Okay, so you just chose not to listen to them until November 30th? I'm confused.
That was when I listened to the calls. We had numerous things we were working on. I knew the 911 calls would be there. We were trying to, you prioritize it the best you can. That was the day I sat down and reviewed the 911 calls.
Okay, so on November 23rd, did you have the ability to listen to the 911 calls through dispatch?
Only one of them.
Okay, and whose call was that?
I believe it's Lillian Christensen.
All right, on November 24th, did you have the ability to listen to the 911 calls?
No, sir, because I was not in the office most of that day. I was actually in Brevard County most of the day.
Well, you still could have pulled it up on your computer or listened to it by phone.
If I may have been, but I did not listen to him that day.
Well, how did you listen to them on November 30th? Isn't it a digital file or did they give you a CD?
No, it's a digital file.
All right, well, did you have access to a computer on November 24th?
Yes, I did.
Did you have access to a computer November 25th?
Yes, I did.
Did you have access to a computer November 26th?
Yes, I did.
November 27th?
Yes, I did.
November 28th?
Yes, I did.
November 29th?
Yes, I did.
And you never heard Chris LeBlanc say it looked like they were stashing something until November 30th. Isn't that true?
That is true.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Guy?
Detective, when you conduct a walkthrough at a scene, is it your job to point things out to the evidence technicians?
It's not per se my job. What it is, it's just an information sharing basically with the evidence technician to make sure we're on the same page, we're seeing the same things. The evidence technicians will often ask what details we're hearing of the incident because that may help them in deciding what may be evidence and what isn't.
And is the purpose then of a walkthrough to familiarize yourself with the scene itself?
And that too, yes.
And when you reduce notes or observations to a report, do you reduce every single observation that you make to a police report?
No, sir.
You were asked about the taking of a sworn statement from Sean Atkins. Were you advised that Sean Atkins was homeless at the time?
Yes.
Is it easy for the sheriff's office to reconnect or track down homeless people?
It can be difficult.
Well, it's already answered, so
Judge, I think it's a fair question.
I do too. It's overruled.
Did you have any reason to search the plaza parking lot the night of the shooting?
No, we had no evidence that there was going to be anything of evidentiary value in that parking lot.
All right, and the boys showed you where they stopped the car?
Approximately, yes.
And it was south of the marquee, that is, between the marquee and the gate station?
Correct.
And tell the members of the jury, they're familiar with the aerial photographs of this scene. Tell the members of the jury, was it on the strip of parking spaces near Southside Boulevard or closer to the buildings?
The ones closer to Southside Boulevard.
All right, can you estimate for the jury, and I know it may be hard, you can estimate how far it would be of a throw from where they said they stopped the car to the roof of one of those buildings in the plaza?
I would say the building itself is probably a good 30, 40 yards away, and then you would have to have elevation on it at that point to be able to get it up onto
All right,
the
well,
roof.
there's buildings on the other side of Southside Boulevard, right?
Across Southside Boulevard, yes.
Right, like the Winn-Dixie?
There's a Publix.
Yeah, about how far is that?
That's probably several hundred yards.
And when you measured the distance from the gate parking lot to the marquee, that was actually past where the boys had said they'd stop the car?
Yes.
All right, so you were being very conservative.
Yes, I just used the marquee as kind of a measuring point to use. I knew it would cover where the boys had said they'd been.
All right. You know, may I have a moment?
Yes, sir.
May I have a moment just to get a photograph up?
Sure.
Ted, did you see stage 3 on your monitor there?
Yes, I do.
All right. You recognize that as being the gate gas station in the plaza where the shooting took place?
Yes.
Can you circle on there where the marquee is? Can you see it? I've got a closer up shot.
No, I can see it.
All right. And the boys said they parked near that marquee?
Yes, they indicated they thought they had stopped right about somewhere in that area, a little bit short of the marquee, but somewhere in that area before getting to the marquee.
Okay, and you made a small mark. Could I ask you to clear that? Would you make a mark where they said they parked approximately?
I'm sorry, that first one's incorrect. More like in the area of that second mark there.
All right. Let's do this. Can we clear it one more time? If you make a mark for me.
Sure. Approximately in that area.
Ms. Water, do you have stage 1 up there? Yeah, that available? Might make it a little easier. Ms. Water, I think it's on storms. I think there's one on storms. Yeah. There we go. You see stage 1 there?
Yes.
All right, how about marking on there where the boys said they stopped the car?
Roughly in that area there.
And so the rooftop, for someone to throw something on a rooftop, where's the rooftop?
It's actually behind this front part here is actually a pretty steep ledge.
That's like a facade, right?
Correct.
At an angle? Okay, so you got to get over that.
Correct.
And then the roof's behind it?
Yes, and then the flat roof would be behind it.
All right, where are the dumpsters at?
The dumpsters are over, it's hard to see them with the trees, whoop, over in this area over here. I apologize.
Can we erase that? Go ahead and show them where the dumpsters are.
They're back in that area.
All right, can you make a mark a little bigger?
I'm sorry.
So we can see it. All right. And then the buildings across the street, that appeared in stage 3. Those are the ones, the Publix on the other side of Southside.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Yes, sir, Mr. Stroller.
Detective Buster, based on those questionings about the roof, if it's so unrealistic to get it done up on the roof, why send the helicopter up to take the photos?
Because I knew you would ask.
Nothing further.
All right, may he be excused, Mr. Guy?
I need him subject to recall.
All right, same. All right, detective, you're subject to recall, so you understand the rule.
Oh, sorry.
But you're excused for the moment.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Corey, next witness.
Detective Karen Smith.
Detective Smith, please.
Yes, sir.
Corey, go right ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. State your name for the record, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Smith.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently the training consultant for the National Forensic Academy at the University of Tennessee
How long have you been employed with the University of Tennessee?
for 8 months.
Prior to that, were you employed by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I was.
For how long were you employed with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
For 13 and a half years.
Explain to the jury what your experience was and your various positions within JSO.
For my first 3 years, I was on patrol and the task force in Zone 3, which was the Phillips Highway, University Boulevard area. After that, I transferred over to the crime scene unit at the end of 2002, which is where I stayed until I left last April.
And in each of those capacities, ma'am, did you have experience in responding to crime scenes and preserving evidence?
Yes, I did.
What special training did you have to become an evidence technician?
When I first went over there, we ride along with an experienced evidence technician or crime scene detective for 30 days to learn the basics. And after that, we attend formal classes in everything from basic crime scene investigations to bloodstain analysis to bullet trajectory reconstruction, crime scene reconstruction, and everything in between. And I attended over 600 hours of those training classes while I was there.
And did you get special training in using a digital camera to document evidence and take
Yes.
photographs?
Yes, I did.
Now, Detective Smith, whether or not you are documenting ballistics type of evidence, shell casings or anything else, does it matter whether or not it's for a homicide, or would you document it the same way no matter what type of a gunshot case was involved?
We document everything the same way every time so that when we come here, we can be assured of exactly what we did.
Detective Smith, were you assigned as a major case evidence technician back in November of 2002 and 2012 and December of 2012?
Yes, I was.
And were you one of the major case evidence technicians who responded to supplemental calls for assistance for the homicide detectives?
Yes,
And would it depend on whether or not you happened to be on duty on a particular day?
that's pretty much right, yes.
Did all of the major case ETs at that time have access to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office vehicle storage warehouse?
Yes,
Is that located at the corner of Haynes and Jesse Streets in downtown Jacksonville?
yes, right down the street at 1089 Haines Street.
And that's in Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida?
Yes,
Is it the practice, or was it the practice when you were employed with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, for each officer to fully document the details of his or her investigation as they are handling a particular matter?
yes,
Are notes then made as part of the normal course of the business of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
yes,
Are those notes then put into an official police report that is kept by track of a CCR number, as we refer to it?
yes,
Would it aid you in your testimony to be able to refer to those reports today if you need them?
yes.
On what date and time were you requested to assist homicide detectives in this case?
It was December 7th of 2012 at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And at whose request did you respond to the vehicle storage warehouse?
I received a cell phone call from Detective Travis Oliver regarding the service of a search warrant at the warehouse.
Okay. And did he tell you what type of vehicle that search warrant was to be served on?
It was on a black Volkswagen Jetta.
Had a fellow evidence technician taken a few photographs of that vehicle to document the seals that had been placed on it prior to it being processed?
Yes,
And did you observe those seals when you arrived on that day?
yes, I did.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 123 in evidence and ask you, ma'am, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize it to be?
This is the Volkswagen Jetta in question.
And at whose request again did you take these photographs?
It was Detective Travis Oliver and Detective Mark Musser.
All right, ma'am. And the piece of paper, is that just warehouse evidence?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. State's Exhibit 124, can you explain that one to the jury?
This is a photograph of the rear of the vehicle and the license plate.
State's Exhibit 125.
This is a photograph of the driver's side of the vehicle with the evidence seals apparent on both doors.
Detective Smith, did you see any damage to any portion of this black vehicle?
No,
Specifically with regard to the driver's side, did you closely inspect that side of the car to see if there was any damage?
yes,
Had you found any damage, would you have taken photographs of it?
yes,
State's Exhibit 126, which has an inset photograph. Can you describe that to the jury?
This is a photograph again of the driver's side of the vehicle, and the inset photograph is a close-up of the seal
Was
on the door.
that, I'm sorry, did not mean to talk over you. Finish your answer.
The seal on the door.
Was that the only seal on the car, or does this represent the type of seals that was surrounded on the car, or that surrounded the car?
That's a representative of the seals that were on the entire car.
And on any seal on this black Volkswagen Jetta, did you find any evidence that they had been cut or tampered with in any way?
No.
With regard to State's Exhibit 120, was that 120? This is 127. Can you describe that to the jury?
This is a photograph of the interior of the vehicle taken from the passenger side window. It is actually taken through the window before the car was opened. And you can see that via the reflection in the upper right-hand side.
State's Exhibit 128.
This is a photograph of 2 spent bullet shell casings on the exterior of the vehicle near the windshield wipers.
Did you touch those shell casings prior to taking this photograph?
No.
Did you allow anyone else to touch them prior to you taking this photograph?
No.
State's Exhibit 129.
This is on the other side of the vehicle. These are 2 more spent shell casings on the exterior of the vehicle by the windshield wipers.
And again, did you allow anyone to touch those 2 shell casings prior to you taking this photograph?
No.
State's Exhibit 130.
This is a photograph of those 4 spent shell casings along with a scale to show size and
And did you preserve these 4 shell casings as evidence and turn those into the property room under this same CCR number?
yes.
What manufacturer stamp do these 4 shell casings bear?
They're 9mm Lugers, Luger.
May I approach defense counsel, Your Honor, and then the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm showing defense counsel states 196.
Yes, ma'am.
May I?
Yes.
Detective Smith, can you look at states 196, please, ma'am, and tell me, are those the shell casings that you removed from the windshield area of the black Volkswagen Jetta?
Yes, they are.
And remind the jury on what date you removed those shell casings?
On December 7th, 2012.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
And did all of these shell casings bear the same manufacturer's head stamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Smith, at the time that you recover evidence such as this, would it be your responsibility to see if it matches up with any other evidence?
No.
Do you preserve everything you find in any homicide investigation for future processing by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, we do.
And did you package those in the envelope that's seen on this exhibit?
Yes, I did.
I have more photographs to show you, ma'am. Was there further physical evidence that you removed from the interior of this vehicle?
Yes.
And did someone direct your attention to a specific area of the vehicle?
Yes.
And let's refer specifically to the front glove box only.
Yes.
And let me ask you, ma'am, in states 131, does that depict that open glove box?
Yes, it does.
And did you find a second magazine for a 9mm pistol inside that glove box?
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 132 and show the jurors where that magazine is.
It is actually inside the glove box, right here.
Thank you.
Not a great circle, but it'll work.
And do some people commonly or in lay terms refer to that as a clip?
Yes,
But is it proper to call it a magazine?
a magazine, that's correct.
So anytime we refer to magazine in here, we're talking about a part of a gun, not a literal magazine, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. States 133, can you tell the jurors what that depicts?
This is my left gloved hand holding on to that magazine and showing the manufacturer's stamp on the bottom.
States 134.
This is a view after I had placed it onto clean cardboard to show the actual magazine sides.
From your experience as both a police officer who carried this type of magazine and your experience as an evidence technician, major case evidence technician, was this magazine fully loaded?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
After I emptied it, once I photographed it, I emptied 18 rounds out of it.
States Exhibit 135 in evidence.
These are photographs showing the head stamp of the 9mm rounds, and then the other side showing that they are hollow point bullets.
Detective Smith, because this works by a spring action, would even a less than capacity magazine have a bullet showing at the top such as that?
Yes.
States Exhibit 136.
This is a photograph of the rounds as they were taken out of the magazine, laid out.
And did you document the head stamp of these as well?
Yes.
Let me take you then to States Exhibit 137.
This is again my left gloved hand showing the head stamp, which is a 9mm Luger.
Detective Smith, did you put all of these items of evidence as well into the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office property room?
Yes.
And did you put it in at the same CCR number pertaining to Jordan Davis and the defendant Michael Dunn?
Yes.
Did you preserve it for future processing by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes.
May I approach Mr. Stroll and then the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me show you States 195 in evidence, ma'am, and ask you, is this a magazine that you retrieved from the gun box, from the glove box, as well as the 18 cartridges?
Yes, they are.
And do you see your markings on the packaging on this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
May I publish to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Detective Smith, Your Honor. That's all I have for her.
Mr. Stroll, across.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Smith, how are you today?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
And I'm not being disrespectful. You retired from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, correct?
I resigned. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you resigned to take the position up in Tennessee.
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, that was a position you sought out for a very long time.
Not for a very long time, but once it became available, it was a position that I was extraordinarily interested in, yes.
And this is actually something you actually wanted to go to when you were a technician here in Jacksonville. They just wouldn't send you.
That's correct. It is an academy that I did want to attend, yes.
Right. And now you're actually working as an administrator there. You help with budgets, agendas, curriculums. You do a lot of things there for that academy, correct?
That's correct.
And that's a 10-week academy.
That's right.
And every week's a different module in terms of your field of an evidence technician, or what people call CSI.
More or less, yes.
Okay. You don't help teach though, correct?
I do teach some modules. I'm not the primary instructor because I wear very many hats. However, I do assist the students with several of the modules, yes.
And in your 13 and a half years there, I think you said you had over 600 hours of training?
That's correct.
Okay. Pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Now, would you admit a lot has changed from the first time you became an evidence technician? A lot has changed in your field.
Yes.
And matter of fact, even what you do now in Tennessee, you kind of weed out the garbage so that you teach basically the best of the best to these module classes.
We do our best, yes.
Okay. And again, this is a highly sought after academy for people to get spots and actually go to it.
Yes.
And it's not just for Tennessee or University of Tennessee, it's countrywide.
It's international as well.
Oh, I apologize. It even goes outside of the country.
Yes.
Okay. And matter of fact, even with all your years of experience and training, if you were still an evidence technician today at Jacksonville, would you still even have to ask questions about scenes that you've gone on and things that happen?
Absolutely.
And that, you think that's a fair a representation of technicians to always ask questions and try to get better?
That's the scientific basis of forensics, yes.
And that's not an unfair assumption. Would you agree?
No, that's not unfair at all.
Now, excuse me, your involvement came on December 7th, correct?
Correct.
Did you have any involvement prior to December 7th?
No.
Matter of fact, this happened on November 23rd. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay, let's just assume it happened on November 23rd. Several weeks later, why did the detectives call you to come to the warehouse?
They were serving a search warrant on the VW Jetta.
Okay, did you know when that Jetta got there?
No, I did not.
And why did they call you? Why did they not call the technicians that were already working on this case?
Detective Kipple was off on his days off. We work completely opposite shifts and completely opposite days. So because I was working, they called my cell phone and asked if I was available.
And did you know that this car had already been processed? Ms. Corey said it was one of your fellow technicians had already processed the vehicle. Did you know that?
I knew that it had come from a different county. I didn't know much about how it had been processed at that point.
Right, and you don't even know who processed it.
No,
And even as of today, did you ever learn who processed it?
no,
Okay, and as far as your understanding, it was from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, one of their guys processed it.
correct.
And when you got there, and you see that there's casings on the outside of the vehicle, what went through your mind?
Objection, irrelevant?
Sustained.
Let me ask you this, based on what you saw, did you see the casings on the outside of the car?
Yes.
Who pointed them out?
Detective Musser.
Based on them pointing it out, what did they ask you to do?
At that point, it was obviously considered evidence, so we handled it as such.
And you basically had to reprocess the entire vehicle, didn't you?
In the sense of fingerprints and other types of evidentiary recovery, no. As far as the casings and other evidence, yes.
Okay, so that was a fair representation. Based on seeing casings on the outside, you basically had to start from scratch regarding the shell casings.
Yes,
And eventually, you opened up the glove box and found the magazine.
yes,
Okay. And again, there was tape on the outside secured to the doors that you had to cut through or open to get into.
yes,
So you don't even know how that magazine got there, when it was there, but you know that car was processed and there's still a magazine in there with 18 rounds, correct?
yes.
Now, is that a red flag in your industry?
A red flag?
Would that be a red flag to see evidence on the outside or inside of already being processed?
It didn't sit well with me, no.
All right. And that's based on your experience and training.
That's correct.
That's something that should never happen.
Mistakes happen.
Now, you have no ballistics training, is that correct?
That's correct, other than a simple trajectory class, but I'm not a ballistics expert by any means.
All right. And even now that you work over in Tennessee at this much more, I don't want to say famous, but a much more qualified module, there is a lot more to ballistics than just a simple course. Is that correct?
Yes,
And even with all your experience and training, even you have a lot to learn possibly in that field.
yes.
And again, that's not an unfair statement.
No, not at all.
And matter of fact, you're still learning quite a bit as you're up there, true?
I learn every day.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes.
Detective Smith, have you learned any differently how to preserve and package evidence to hold for future testing?
No,
Would you still be doing this the same way today, despite what you've learned since you left the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
yes.
No further questions.
May she be excused?
She may.
Mr. Stroller?
So excuse your honor.
Thank you, Detective. Appreciate you being here.
Your Honor, this is the point is that we need a short break to get next week.
Okay, we'll take a 7-minute break, for those of you who know what that means. They're older. Don't talk about the case among yourselves, or let anybody talk about the case in your presence. Ms. Corey?
Yes, please, yes.
May I see you, Mr. Stroller, because
Yes, your honor. One moment, please.
you,
I'm taking it up right now, your honor.
well, just turn it off.